which is what you all's go-to tool is now.
Giving you a little more background, he worked in the Justice Department's public integrity section where he prosecuted Democrat John Jenrette in the Abscam scandal, if you remember that. Ronald Reagan appointed Holder to serve as a judge in the United States District Court of the District of Columbia.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
That was all before he got into bed with the Clintons.
Okay. He oversaw the corruption case against Dan Rostenkowski, a Democrat.
Well, once again, both of those cases that he listed, the Democrats were so egregious that there was no way you could defend it. So the Democrats have to axe murder someone on the front lawn of the White House before you'll go, well, maybe we should investigate that.
What's going on with Roy Moore down in Alabama?
Well, the Democrats have successfully taken someone that I'm not for him, and I think the people are credible, but you can't deny the timing of this. Why didn't this all come out in the primary when he would have lost the primary and a Republican without this baggage would have been in the general? This was a Washington Post hit job in coordination with the Democrats, but now the hit job probably is true. So I'm not saying it's not true.
I mean, how do you prove something 40 years ago?
Well, there's a lot of evidence coming out at this point.
Like what?
Well, it turns, you know, how hard must it be for an assistant district attorney to be banned from a mall because of his predatory behavior toward young girls? That's got to be pretty difficult.
The women are unconnected. They didn't seek the press out. The press went to them. The stories are very similar. But again, this is a political hit job. Now, I'm not saying that he's innocent. That's not what I mean. What I mean is the timing of this was meant to steal a Republican solid seat away from the Republicans, and the Democrats have successfully done this, probably.
Well, I mean, you've got to be guilty of something before they can come out and say it. I mean, how come there's no charges?
And I hope Franklin would agree to this. As
there's no charges.
As much as I think.
There's not going to be. The statute of limitations has passed.
Well, then why are we talking about it?
Well, I would think that if you spend as
because
much
it's
time
immoral and ethical.
If you spend as much time as Roy Moore has spent touting morals and ethics, your morals and ethics are always fair.
Well, how much money did the Democrats spend on that election trying to get him beat already?
Not a lot, because he was going to win. This is the coup de grace.
Actually, they've been criticized for the fact that they didn't put any money into
he wasn't going to. No, the Democrat wasn't going to win. Didn't have a chance in hell of winning until the Washington Post, in their perfect timing, released this story. So this was a way for the Democrats to steal this seat without having to spend a lot of money. Now let me say something.
Has Roy Moore done a good job the last 40 years?
Probably
not. In my opinion, no.
Now, look, I like a lot of his positions. I do. I agree with a lot of his positions. But, for example, I disagreed with the Supreme Court decision allowing gay marriage. But he was the Chief Justice of the state Supreme Court. You can't refuse to enforce a Supreme Court decision. That violates the rule of law. I criticized the Obama Justice Department for violating and damaging the rule of law, and he did the same thing. So while I agreed with his opinion on the decision, we live in a country that operates based on the rule of law. But let me say something as someone who worked in the Senate, because I'm all over the place on this story. I think this is a political hit job. I think the timing was laid out. I think it's pretty dirty on the Democrats' part to do this the way they did it. And I think that if they're successful, I think they have stolen a seat that the people in Alabama would have never given to the Democrats, especially a liberal, abortion-loving Democrat like the guy's going to be down there. But having said all of that, I find it really insulting for the United States Senate, and these are Republicans as well, especially Republicans and the Democrats, to be saying he's not fit to serve in the United States Senate. Now, this is a group of people, many of which serve directly, and then certainly all of them are aware of this, that served with a serial liar, adulterer, and murderer in Ted Kennedy and called him the Lion of the Senate. This is an institution that elected a grand wizard of the Ku Klux Klan as their majority leader, and they have the gall to now say that Roy Moore isn't qualified to sit in our midst. So I find the hypocrisy of that BS completely insulting.
Are all the people who said that people who were there at that time?
Absolutely.
A lot of them weren't.
Look,
Are they able to say it?
Ted Kennedy has only been gone a few years. Most of these people up there, over half, served with the man, called him the Lion. I've got friends, Franklin, that had to fend him off, grabbing and groping them.
Okay.
Who work up there. The man was a murderer.
I'm not defending Ted
There was
Kennedy.
a
That's not my question.
45-minute air
That
bubble
wasn't
in
my
the car
question.
that woman died in.
That wasn't my question. My question is, those elected people who came after Ted Kennedy, is it okay for them to be critical
It's
of him?
okay for them.
Okay.
If you
All
weren't
right.
up there when Ted Kennedy was there, but the bulk of those people were. John McCain talked about it. John McCain served with him, worked with him, served under Robert Byrd, who was a grand wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. If that doesn't disqualify you from being in the Senate, you need to keep your mouth shut when you start raking other people
I'm
over
all
the coals.
for consistency.
Well, all right. Then you've got the Roy Moore issue, and now then the they're coming out against the Senate plans. Well, no, I'm sorry. They're coming out against the staffers in Washington right now. It's coming out with a lot of stuff about all the politicians in Washington.
Okay.
And what about Bill Clinton?
Well, he's not in office anymore.
Well, some of the media have actually had to admit that they were not fair in how they treated Bill Clinton, that they covered for him and were ugly to his accusers. But quite convenient after he served 2 terms as president and his wife was almost elected president in her own right.
Well, you know, everybody gets their dandruff up on some of this stuff. I mean, I don't know Roy Moore. I don't know the man at all, but everything that I'm reading or listening to right now, it basically is the Democrats coming after someone again. It's kind of like this Russia investigation. You know, you don't know.
Well, look, the Roy Moore thing.
Roy Moore said he doesn't even know something.
Yeah, but here's the thing about Roy Moore. Had it just been that he dated 18 and 19-year-old girls, one of the girls actually, the story was she asked her mother, what would you say if I told you Roy Moore wanted to go out with me? And the mother said, I'd say you were the luckiest girl in whatever the little town was. That was her mother's response. If that's all it had been, I personally would have been saying, look, that was in the 70s. The mores were different and all then. The problem is the 14-year-old who says that he inappropriately touched her.
And the girl
problem.
yesterday who said he tricked her into a car and groped her over her objections.
Has anybody looked at the voting records of those girls?
She said her and her husband voted for Donald Trump.
Well, has anybody looked at the voting records of these people?
Most of
So
them
do you
claim
really
to
think
be,
that these people are just going to show up and expose their lives to this
What do you think?
just
what
because
do you think made them,
they may have once voted for a Democrat or
hey,
something?
why do you think they did it all of a sudden?
Well,
Why didn't they do it before he got to the point?
Because you and I
Well,
both
see-
know that there are all kinds of things in small towns in the 70s you didn't talk about.
well, I will say, Franklin, there are
And
plenty
nobody
of
be
people.
surprised by
Eric
that.
Erickson on Red State wrote a piece, and he
I
said,
bet
look,
girls were paid to do it.
he said, look, I don't want to defend Roy Moore. He said, but you can't look at the timing of this. Roy Moore has run multiple statewide campaigns. He has been of national significance and national, you know, the liberals have hated him for decades now. The idea that this never came out before is a little troubling. And the idea that it didn't come out during the primary that we just had, that's what I'm talking about it being a hit job. It is clearly
It's
a hit job.
It's a hit job.
But that doesn't mean it's not true, Steve. That's the problem.
You know what? It's a hit job. It's a hit job, and we just need to handle it as a hit job.
So it doesn't matter what he did. You don't care.
I don't think 40 years ago, and nothing's been said about it in 40 years, there's anybody that's got a right to start talking about it when the man's winning an election like this.
So all these other women who are coming out and talking about things that
Well,
happened
what
to
are
them
we-
over the
what are you
30s,
gonna do?
should they just shut up?
What are
too?
you going to do about the lawmakers in Washington right now?
Hold them to the same standard.
Be extra careful. The male lawmakers who sleep in their offices.
Hold them to the same standard.
I will say, I have been shocked, to be honest, going back over the last year. I've been shocked at the number of women that I've had, for example, not necessarily defend Bill Cosby, but I've had them